This video and others like it are made possible by Wildwire, Elijah Perry, Kyo Cartoons, and Noah Wizbios. If you'd like a shout out at the beginning or end of these videos, please click the join button below. You support the channel and get some nice rewards. Also, I am telling you right now, not asking, to subscribe to this channel. You will miss parts of this story and others like it if you don't. And make sure to hit that bell as well. And one last thought before we begin, make sure you comment down below if you have any story or scenarios you'd like me to try out and turn into a full story. I read every comment I get, so if you leave a comment, I will see it. Now, if you haven't seen the setup for this story, you're going to want to go ahead and click the card up there to get caught up. But without further ado, let us begin Sonic the Hedgehog, the Malice of MEPHILES. Darkness. There is nothing but darkness all around the cat. It's this dream again. The same one she's been having for weeks, months even. Running through a pitch-black void. Not even her flames provide visibility. As she runs, she can hear a voice slowly grow louder. But she cannot make out what they're saying. A voice she's never heard before, but it's a voice that brings her comfort. She charges forward faster and faster every time she's here, trying to reach the voice, but she just can't. But tonight is different. Tonight she's able to make out a few words. My flickering flame, just a little bit further. With a jolt, the cat wakes. Surrounding her are the walls of her palace bedroom. Not a bit of darkness in sight as the sun crawls in through the curtains. As always when waking up from this dream, her heart is racing. She can't tell if it's leftover adrenaline or simply the flames coursing through her veins. But she's been through enough in life to know that a repeated dream like this can't just be coincidence. She leaves the comfort of her bed and pushes the curtains aside, bathing the room in sunlight. The fiery princess closes her eyes and welcomes the morning as she always does. But unbeknownst to her, the shadow she casts behind her begins to warp and writhe in anticipation. Today's the day, princess. But before we see what today actually is, we have to flash back a few months and see how we got here. You might remember that in the previous part of this story, we basically had Shadow Generations and the story of how Mephiles ended up surviving instead of being trapped in a timeless void for the rest of eternity. We then saw Mephiles tag along with Blaze the cat by sneaking into her shadow, and from there, we left things pretty ambiguous. After the events of Sonic Forces and the IDW comics up to a certain point, Blaze the cat would return to the Soul Dimension with an unintended guest. She does like being in Sonic's world, surrounded by all of her friends, but unfortunately she has a duty to the Soul Dimension of which she is the princess of. Besides, she can only leave for so long without Marine the raccoon getting into some crazy antics on her own and needing some kind of assistance. Some things never change. Cross-dimensional travel is never a cakewalk per se. Thankfully, the Soul Emeralds do most of the heavy lifting for her. But this time, something feels different. As she calls on the Soul Emeralds to bring her back to her home dimension, they don't respond in the same way that she's used to. They do appear at her call like they always do, but transportation does not come as quickly as she's accustomed to. She, of course, doesn't blame the Soul Emeralds. Everyone can have an off day, of course. But it does pique her curiosity that this has never happened before. She communicates her will again to the emeralds of which she is guardian, and almost with a feeling of reluctancy in the air, a fiery tornado breaks through the clouds, engulfing her, and whisking her away to her destination. Blaze arrives in the palace, the room at which she had departed from originally. Despite the fact that the room is kept clear for her comings and goings from the dimension, nobody is really interested in getting burned alive by a flaming tornado, of course. She can't help but feel that someone is staring directly at her, right at the back of her head, yet not a single sound can be heard aside from the beating of her own heart. She sweeps the room carefully, once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. Why is she feeling so paranoid all of a sudden? She shakes her head, thinking to herself that it must be a side effect of being surrounded by so many of her friends, only to return to the loneliness of her home. The cat puts these feelings aside to remain strong for her people, and takes her exit from her teleportation chamber. As the lights are extinguished and the door thuds closed, a single spot of deeper shadow can be seen in the middle of the floor where Blaze first arrived. A pair of red, malice-laden eyes appear in the center of this void. Slowly, a figure rises from the floor, and to even his surprise, it is not a form that he recognizes. A shadowy form with even less defined features than he normally finds himself with. He comes to the conclusion that inhabiting another's shadow has given him yet more possibilities for trickery. He now adds the shadowy form of Blaze the Cat to his repertoire. Yes, he could see this being very handy in the future. But for now, he allows his form to shift into the crystalline visage that he is much more accustomed to, and he clamps his hands together, feeling the fresh air of a brand new world that is his for the conquering. We would then have a bit of a joyride or montage scene of Mephiles exploring Blaze's palace, having to hide in the shadows from various koala guards in silly little outfits as he makes his way through various rooms, observing, learning. After combing several rooms that he has no interest in, crew quarters, kitchens, strange small rooms filled with porcelain fixtures that he does not understand the purpose of. But finally, he lays eyes on his prize, a chamber containing a number of books, scrolls, and in the center, a set of podiums housing those gems, the Soul Emeralds. Somewhere deep within his form, they do call to him, sort of like what he feels when he's close to Iblis. But with these gems, it somehow feels stronger. Knowing they must be under some form of protection, he leaves them alone for now, and instead sets his eyes on the knowledge of this world. He's going to need to learn a lot before he can take everything for himself. Starting with the history of their dear princess, or as she's called in these texts, the Miracle. One might think that if Blaze is the princess of this soul dimension, that it is a title she inherited from family, but things are different in the soul dimension. The palace had been empty for as long as anyone could remember. The palace had simply been left standing out of respect for rulers that even the elders amongst the kingdom could not even remember the names of. And that was because, simply, the rulers are not chosen by the people or even by bloodlines. They are chosen by the Soul Emeralds. Whoever the gems choose become the guardian of not only them, but of the entire dimension. And having rejected every person that had come to rule since their last ruler faded to obscurity, they were simply a people with no leader and no direction, until the day that she arrived. The normally green sky was bathed in red. Denizens of the soul dimension cowered in fear, unsure of what was happening or if they would survive the oncoming apocalypse, when with a bright flash, something appeared in the sky. Tens of thousands of feet above the Soul Palace, that object began crashing down towards the ground, fire erupting from it in all directions. And that's when something happened that nobody could have predicted. The Soul Emeralds erupted from the palace, shooting towards that falling force and pacifying it, containing the flames, gently bringing that falling object to the ground. The remaining castle guards and caretakers rushed into the front yard to see what had happened, the sky now returning to the normal hue of green that everyone was accustomed to. I know I keep saying green sky, by the way. I'm going off the end of Sonic Rush because I just really like the idea that they live on planet Namek or something. Just give me this, okay? There was the object that had crashed down from the heavens, with the Soul Emeralds slowly rotating around them. They found a purple cat, unconscious and still very much on fire, but not in an out-of-control way. And she wasn't screaming, so that at least seemed like good news. They couldn't believe their eyes. It had been so long since the Soul Emeralds had acknowledged anyone, and now, out of nowhere, this mysterious creature that fell from the sky is meant to be their new ruler? Though they have to remember it's not really up to them, because it's not like they can have a friendly chat with the 7 mystical gemstones. Trust them, they've tried. The caretakers approach the cat, and as the Soul Emeralds lift into the air to allow them passage, the cat suddenly opens an eye, shakily, and reaches out a hand for the stones. At once, they all rush back towards her and disappear in a blinding flash. And the once purple cat that was almost comatose before them was now standing perfectly fine on her own, surrounded by an intense aura of flame. With her eyes now fully open, she's alerted to the gathering of people around her. as they all whisper and back up, shielding themselves from the immense heat she's giving off. Blaze. My name is Blaze. These gems have filled my mind with knowledge of this world. Yet when I try to think of anything else, there is nothing, just that name, Blaze. I know not what brought me here, but I will protect you and this world. It is my new duty to the Soul Emeralds. And as it was written, the crowd began to encircle their new princess and cheer for their protector, all while the cat had a very stoic look on her face, lost in thought over her thoughts that had been lost. And that's all you're gonna get for today, because I have to build suspense. So if you want to see the next part of this, make sure you subscribe, click the bell, and maybe even join my Discord. All those links you can find in the description below. I'd also like to thank my current channel supporters, who are Wild Wire, Elijah Perry, Common CJ, Keo Cartoons, Noah Wizbios, Ultima Jack, Erwin the Fennec Fox, CSDX, Nean, Danny Lee Dauber, Mr. Dreamcast, Jeremy, Dax, Faye, Minty, Mega Traffic Cone, Ty Little Tech Guy, and Crystal. And then over on Patreon, we have Drew Smothers and Noah Wizbios again. And thank you also to everyone who's supporting in the $1 tier. I really appreciate the support a lot. It's literally keeping the channel and myself alive at this point. If you would like videos like this to keep coming out and you'd like shoutouts at the end or beginning of my videos, please go ahead and click the join button below. Thank you so very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you all next time.